Travel Saturday with Sarah and Ed with Canadian Sky. Fly to the heart of the Canadian Rockies direct from Dublin to Calgary and experience spectacular scenery and vibrant cities. Discover Canada in 2024 with canadiansky.ie.
They are back in studio, the travel experts Sarah Slattery and Ed Finn. You're welcome.
Morning, Trina.
Now, we want to look today at cruises. Would you believe I've never been on a cruise, Sarah? You're a fan, aren't you?
I am a big fan, yeah. And I guarantee you now, Trina, there's a cruise out there for you. There's a cruise out there for everybody.
I remember years and years ago thinking that cruises were for kind of older people. And if you're retired, that's what you do.
I know.
Is that not the case?
I mean, it's changed dramatically over the years. I mean, going way back about 20 years ago, it was perceived, I suppose, to be a sort of a more retirement thing, you know, a bucket list. But now you get all ages. I mean, the cruise ships now, Trina, are like moving villages with you know, theme parks and slides that go on forever. So like, it depends on the ship. Sarah will tell you, I mean, in terms of families, you have to pick the right ship. Like if you don't want to be around a lot of kids, you don't want to be on the Icon of the Seas. You want to be on an Azamara with 600 people that like, you're into the food.
You've so many people on a ship, like on a cruise ship. How can you be guaranteed to have, you know, a place to lounge around the pool? And it can be very tricky.
Well, you see, these are designed now by architects, like buildings, and they are designed in a way that is like ergonomically friendly. So you can't imagine, there's trees and boulevards on some of them, like Jamie Oliver restaurants, there's robots making cocktails. There's so many things going on. Yeah. It's funny, you don't actually ever see, it's not like all the people are gathered in one place. It's just completely spread out in a very clever way. So it is very well done.
Okay. Now, Sarah, talk to me then about what kind of cruises are out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. This year we've 14 new ships coming on the market. And it's true, I think, what Ed was saying, like, you know, there is so many different areas to go on and so many different ships depending on what you're looking for. But the new one, I suppose, the talk of the town at the moment is Icon of the Seas, which just launched in Miami, the new Royal Caribbean ship. It's now the largest ship in the world. I posted it on my Instagram and people thought it was AI. They thought it was like, they couldn't believe it was actually real.
Wow.
But when you saw the drone footage going overhead, with brand new water park on board. There's 6 different water slides, like a big drop at sea, like the water slides you see in massive big water parks. There's a whole separate area then for younger kids, a brand new neighbourhood there. There's like 40 restaurants and bars. It can hold 5,600 passengers is the norm, but at max capacity it can have 7,600 passengers.
It's like Noah's Ark.
With crew, you're looking at nearly 9,000 people, which is just mind-blowing. Like, it's
20 decks, 20 stories, imagine.
Just like insane. So, you know, you've got that kind of ship. And as Ed said, you know, it's very much geared towards families as well. So particularly if you pick the right time of year. I mean, I'm sure if you went in the Caribbean in November, you probably wouldn't get many families. But if you're looking at the Mediterranean or you're looking at cruising around the Caribbean during school holiday time, you're going to get loads of kids.
You know that you say, oh, cabin fever. Are the cabins really, really tiny on these cruise ships?
No, I mean, you've loads of different choices. You know, you like interstate, you've got, you know, there's some cabins which are the entry level, I suppose, which wouldn't really have windows, but they'd have a pretend window with a kind of a virtual.
They're the cheaper ones.
Yeah, they would be the cheaper ones. But they've really upped the game on that. I mean, you know, you rarely hear people complaining now because of cabins. It's always good to do upgrades. Balconies are great, especially if you like a little bit of peace and quiet, sit on the balcony with your little glass of wine in the evening. But a lot of the cruise companies now and the travel agents that sell them, there's loads of free upgrades and free packages, you know, again, drinks packages, add-ons. They give lots of added value offers, but just for the extra couple of €100, like a balcony is great.
Yeah. We have friends and they love nothing more than going on a cruise, and they say you have to make sure that you're at a healthy weight before you go because you're going to gain so much weight on a cruise.
Yeah, and I mean, that's
the food
a good
is so
thing.
gorgeous.
Yeah, and it is actually good. I mean, like if you can not eat for a week before you go on the cruise, right, you're going to really enjoy it because my grandfathers used to say hunger's a great sauce, Trina. But I mean, really, it is true because the food is phenomenal and it's just hard to resist it because I remember I did Azamara. It's the smaller ship, the boutique one, and there was only about 500 people on board, but the food it's very famous for the food and great wines. Yeah. But there was about 15 food presentations a day. There was barbecues, there was ice cream stands.
Where did they get it all though?
It's like a food fest. It was brilliant, but it was really nice. And then, of course, come home and go on the keto diet for a week would be grand.
Yeah. Where do they get all the fresh food though?
It's mind-blowing really. And now well, that's not new I suppose anymore, but these speciality restaurants, like you have restaurants on board with Michelin star chefs, or the menus are curated by Michelin star chefs in some instances. All your meals are included. and you will have so many complimentary restaurants, whether it's buffet style, and then you'll have main dining, and then you may have 1 or 2 casual dining included as well. But then you'll have all these speciality dining restaurants, so you may have sushi or teppanyaki or gourmet French bistro or something like that, and that you will pay extra for. And like as Ed said, you can pre-purchase these. Always best to pre-purchase your packages, whether it's a speciality dining package, whether it's a drinks package in advance. It's much cheaper. But the value is incredible. Like some of the steakhouses, you wouldn't get better in Shanahan's, you know, and the supplement might be $25 or something like that for this incredible fillet steak or côte de boeuf, or you know, really, really good. And there's variety for everybody, you know. There's plenty of casual Italian restaurants, and you know, it's not all fine dining either, you know. There's a great mix.
Because I was going to ask you, do you have to have like a fancy ball gown to wear for any of the or is that just in the movies?
Well, I mean, when I sailed across the Atlantic, right, on the Queen Mary from Southampton to New York, 8 days, I was informed by an elderly lady who was actually 100 years old on the ship that it's not a cruise, it's a crossing, because we didn't actually stop off anywhere.
Right, yeah.
Literally, she'd been on it 100 times. She never got on a plane. But it was amazing. Like, they have the biggest ballroom on the seas. They had Bill Bryson giving a lecture. The Royal Philharmonic Orchestra were playing. And there was 5 evenings of black tie and dinner with Captain Wells.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, we were told, and this is where we lost Titanic. And everyone was like, oh
good
God.
night.
You know, it's like, but it was, you really got the sense of, oh my, you know, you're in the middle of the ocean and you're gaining hours as you go across. And of course, it's just this relaxing sleep of, it was August, September, so the sea was like glass, it was so calm. But, I mean, they had a Red Lion pub, there was karaoke, you know, there was just something for everybody. But the dining with Captain Wells was it was just that kind of thing you'd see on one of those Agatha Christie movies or something.
I know.
But it's great crack. But, I mean, you just have to go with it. And you meet people on cruises, like the weirdest and wonderful people. But if you don't, you know, just make sure you don't, like, kind of fall out with anyone, because you'll probably meet them a couple of times during the week. But it is a fabulous way to get on a ship. Now, in terms of the Mediterranean cruises and like Norway or the fjords, or even one that I want to do there, Sarah, is the Alaska cruise. You know that you fly to Calgary, you go to Vancouver, and then you do a 7-night Alaska cruise. I really want to get up to Alaska to see it, and that's the Tropical Sky one. That's amazing value. That's bucket list stuff. But aside from that, an entry level, you get on and you go around, you do all the Mediterranean, you could do Italy, Croatia, you know, Turkey, Greece, whatever. And you don't have to be going through airports or anything. It's just all there. And you get to see so much. You know, you'd never be able to plan that.
Sarah, can I ask you then about, you know, when they stop off at the various places, how long do you have at each port? I saw that very funny video. You probably saw it during the week, the couple who missed the cruise ship and they arrived at the dock just as it was pulling away. It was about 5 yards from the side. They were like, stop, come back. They can't come back for you. So how long do you get to kind of look around?
It really depends on the ship and the itinerary. The Mediterranean cruises, and actually it's good that we talked about the transatlantic, because that's where they're so different. That's where, like, it's really nice to have a balcony, for instance. If you're not getting off the ship and everybody's going to be at the pool deck, it's really nice to have a balcony. Whereas if you're in Europe and you're stopping somewhere different every day and you're off the ship every day, you have a different stop, the pool decks will never be that busy and you don't necessarily need a balcony there. So again, all of these little tips and tricks are good to get from a cruise specialist. A good cruise specialist agency will tell you all of this. And some of the stops might maybe arrive at 10 o'clock in the morning, you get back on at 6 in that evening. But now with some of the bigger ships, they can't dock right in at the port, so they have to dock, you know, outside, and you have to get tender boats in and out. So that can take longer as well. So you may think you have, you know, 10 hours, but actually by the time you get in and out, you may only have kind of 8. So again, it varies. But I would say, with regard to that couple who missed the ferry, if you book the excursions on board, like, a lot of people would just get off and wander around. So if you dock in a city like Nice, for instance, that you can just literally hop off, wander around and explore on your own, that's fine. But if you're maybe at the Amalfi Coast and you want to take a tour of the Amalfi Coast or go over to Capri or something, I definitely recommend booking the excursion with the cruise company, because they'll bring you
They know
there
what's
and bring you
happening
back,
then.
and the ship won't leave without you.
Yeah.
But if you book your own independent thing, they may leave without you.
Because I think on that particular, it's very funny, the video of them was waving for the ship to come back. I think the captain gave them 20 extra minutes or something. They were told what time to be back for and gave them plenty of time, and they still weren't back. So, I mean, what can you do? They have to get on with it.
I remember being in Venice a few years ago, and we were on a trip like that, and we were getting the vaporettas and thing, and there was two ladies that were late for everything on the tour, and they were literally 10 minutes. But the guy, he was a bit of a military type tour guide, and he was like, no, and we left them. They were waving hysterically.
No.
But I mean, they were only like the next boat came along, so they were grand.
Yeah, okay. So where would you recommend going? Is there anywhere in particular months of the year that you'd recommend?
Well, I suppose if you haven't cruised before, the Med is a great place to start. And again, the fact that you're off every day, usually you may have one day at sea, but usually over a 7-day cruise, you probably get off 6 days. Now, that's not to say you have to get off. You can stay on board and enjoy the quieter ship that day, which is also a nice experience. But it just means that, you know, if you want to get off and explore, you can. The ship doesn't feel as crowded. So that's a good way to start. But again, it's important to just check the various cruise companies and cruise ships out, because some of them during July, August, for instance, will be full of families. It's a really big family market now. You know, going back to what we were saying about what was once for older people or retirement couples, it's almost the opposite now. You know, when Royal Caribbean promoted that new ship, Lionel Messi was the
ambassador.
Yes, and you know, they did ads on it. They brought out a game on Fortnite the year before, so you could go around the ship collecting things, and you know, they're really getting into the minds of the kids before they're even launched now. So with all those water slides, and it is very much a really good kind of multi-generational thing to do, because there's stuff for older parents, for kids. You can even leave the kids on the ship and go off and explore on your own.
Did anyone see the kids?
Now, I know some people will be horrified at that idea, but like, my kids are teenagers now, and we're going on Sun Princess, another brand new ship this year for Easter. I've seen it in the shipyard, looks incredible, can't wait. But I know, for instance, now, we probably I'll probably be lynched now, they've texted in, given out. I'd probably leave the kids on board one of the days. I said they're 16 and 13, but we go off, explore for a couple of hours and just come back in. And it's just nice to have that choice, you know, when they are that little bit older, because where else would you feel safe like that to be able to do that?
Yeah, and you were saying there, I mean, time of year, I mean, you know, like February, March, kind of winter time here, like, so if you want sun, the Caribbean is the place that you'd go. So the ships follow the sun, you know, so all sorts of interesting ones. There's amazing expeditions as well you can do on the likes of Silver Sea, Ponant, you know, you can go and do the whole Arctic, like we're saying there, Alaska cruise, polar bears and all that kind of stuff. So there's amazing stuff you can do. I mean, smaller ships that would only hold 300 people, and they're icebreakers, you know, and you're up into real sort of Shackleton country when you do those ones. But the other thing I wanted to just say, we talked about it before, I loved I did Brittany ferries from Rosslare to
I
Bilbao.
remember you talking about that last year, yeah.
And it was like overnight, and you know, they had really nice, but it was terrific. And we went down through the Bay of Biscay, and we saw dolphins, and we actually saw a whale as well. But it was really cool, and that ship is powered by liquefied natural gas. It's lower emissions, it's
really
sustainable. Quiet. Yeah, and they're going to be able to plug it in a few years. It'll actually be like you charge a car. Imagine. I'd say the whole of Cherbourg will go blackout once they do that. But anyway, let's see but really incredible what they're doing. Like, I had a tour of the actual engine room, and there was guys with, you know, your hats on as if you were in a science lab, and it's just incredible. This gas comes in, and it's just there's no smoke, but it's really good. They're really into that whole sustainable thing, which I really liked. And as a little cruise thing, I mean, they had a club lounge, they had lots to do for the kids as well. They had 200 art installations called the Salamanca. You thought you were in Spain when you got on the ship. Tapas, taverna, and you know, all that. But it was great, and I just loved it. I thought that was really nice. You drove on with the car, of course, and then you filled it with great, affordable wine.
Do you know what this is bringing back a memory? Do you remember, Sarah, he said that he had a bottle.
I have that in the car for you.
Yeah, the wine has been in the car since last year.
A Lucy.
Actually, before we wrap up on the cruises, Sarah, I remember you giving us tips before on if you are booking your cabin or whatever, there's certain things you were saying about try not to maybe book your cabin near the kitchen so you hear the clinking of the cutlery and everything.
Yeah, I suppose, again, this is where a really good cruise specialist comes into play, you know, because there's lots of difference. Like, you can get balcony cabins now that look out onto the promenade deck in the middle of the ship that are not actually balconies that look out to sea, you know, and they might be cheaper, but you still have that space. There's these new infinity balconies, which are really cool, which are kind of come part, there's like a divider, but then you can take the divider back and you're out at sea. And then a lot of the inside cabins now have this kind of, they project in real time the ocean onto like a LED window. So you think you're looking out onto the sea, you think you have a window, but you don't have a window. So they've basically come out with all of these just incredible technology, really, as I said, with robots making your drinks. So there's lots of different ways to go about it. You know, you can also get rooms that have like a slightly obstructed view that might be cheaper. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be beside noisy, don't be beside the nightclub or the clanging of the plates, the buffet breakfast. You know, midship is usually good, but depending on where the restaurants and things are. But you can usually get it, you can usually able to pick your cabin. You might pay a little bit extra to actually pick the actual number you're on. So, you know, that is very easily done. There's no problem.
River cruising has become huge as well. I was chatting to one of the guys yesterday. They're based out of Dusseldorf, Viva Cruises, Riviera Cruises. And you can say, like, you know, Budapest, all down through Germany, you know, France, they do great ones. So the river cruising is really cool. And again, you're right into all the different cities, and they're really luxurious. And again, they would be usually slightly older, but, you know, they're very, very nice, and a really nice way to do Europe, river cruising. And the Uniworld, Viva, Viking.
Travel Marble as well, they have really good offers. And
really good.
The Christmas market one looks really good. I wanted to do that last year, where they'll go into, like, you know, a few different cities, a few different Christmas markets over
Nuremberg
4 or 5 days.
as well,
it's pretty cool, like, way to do it if you wanted to try something different or you want an introduction to cruising. But I mean, there's definitely a cruise for everybody, whether it's you want the lively ship, whether you want it quiet, whether you want to dress for dinner, whether you don't. Like Norwegian cruises, it's completely freestyle, like completely casual dining. I've been on ships where nobody dresses up at all, you know. So it's depending on what you want. There's a cruise there for you, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Cunard liner, I mean, the people that go on that love all that dressing up, right? So that's what they literally go over and back, and they do all the nights. When I did that, like, I stayed in New York for 3 nights, and then I flew back. I think the package was actually flight to Southampton, the cruise over, the crossing, 3 nights, and then flight one way back. And I think it was only 1,400 quid. It was, I think, Click and Go there was the company that booked it. But it was fabulous value. I flew back, but there was people coming back on the cruise as well. Now, I would not have been able to come back again, like, you know, another 8 days after. It was just, you know, but people just love all that pomp and ceremony.
That's actually a good way to get a deal, the transatlantic cruises. So what Ed was saying about them following the sun, so if they're in the Caribbean for the winter and they're coming to the Med, that crossing to get from, you know, the Caribbean to Europe, there's usually really good deals on that because it's a once-off transatlantic cross. So you'll get them probably in April, and you may get them again in November. If you don't mind being at sea for long, usually it's probably more for people who've cruised a bit and are comfortable, you know, being at sea and just enjoying the ship. Don't feel like they need to get off as many times. But you may stop in Madeira or the Azores or something like that on the way. But it may be 1 or 2 stops as opposed to 6 out of 7 that you'll have in the Med or the Caribbean or something.
Yeah, it was very good. I mean, we had, like, you know, it was liveried service, white gloves, you know. We got upgraded to these Princess Grill suites or whatever they were called, but they was really nice. So I didn't see a buffet for the whole week. It was grand. It was really, you were really spoiled, you know. It was really nice. So that's, again, another option, you know. But if you really want to treat yourself, I mean, it's fabulous stuff, you know.
Great.
And you can bring the pets. They've 13 pet cabins, so you can bring the dog across as well.
Oh no, we need a holiday from the dogs. Thanks very much. Okay, cruises, we are sold.
Travel Saturday with Sarah and Ed with Canadian Sky. Fly to the heart of the Canadian Rockies, direct from Dublin to Calgary, and experience spectacular scenery and vibrant cities. Discover Canada in 2024 with CanadianSky.ie.